Government Efficiency Committee meeting for April 9th, Tuesday. Councilmember Dennis Zine, Chair, my colleague Bill Rosendahl. And we have on the agenda 3 items. So we will start with number 1, please. Mr. Clerk.
Item number 1, City Controller Report relative to an audit of ambulance billing services and the impacts of AB 678.
Take it away.
Good afternoon. My name is Wale Oyewole with City Controller. On February 20th, 2013, the Controller's Office issued a report on the impact of AB 678 legislation on the city's contract with Advanced Data Processing, Inc. The primary objective of this audit was to determine whether the city has adequately considered the impact of that legislation on the ADPI contract. This included determining whether there has been plans to modify the contract, if necessary, to ensure that ADPI would not be compensated additional fees as a result of the legislative change. We also review the ABI 678 estimated revenue for reasonableness. Just a quick background. In order to help local municipalities...
You just said there's 10 million, right, that we have from that, if I'm reading the report?
The total is 23.5 million.
But there's 10 million that's coming out of the budgeted 82 million, includes 10 million in AB 678, it says. Just want to make sure these numbers are correct.
That is correct, but the total is 23.5 million expected.
Perfect.
Okay, so in October 2011, the California legislature passed AB 678, the Medical Supplemental Provider Reimbursement Bill. This bill allows eligible emergency response providers to receive supplemental medical reimbursement in addition to the rate of payment that the provider would otherwise receive for providing emergency medical transportation services to Medicare beneficiaries. Total reimbursement, including supplemental payments, may not exceed actual cost. The AB 678 program is open only to public agencies who directly provide services, and the program will be administered by State Department of Healthcare Services with the approval of Federal Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The city anticipates that the legislation will result in millions of dollars in additional ambulance service revenue. Because the bill allows agencies to submit claims retroactively, the department estimated a total of about 23.5 million will be realized this fiscal year by submitting retroactive claims for transportation services provided from January 2010 to June 2012. The summary of the findings, we found that the contract does not clearly indicate whether AB 678's revenue should be included or excluded from net collections used to compute fees that will be paid to ADI on an annual basis. And in order to adequately protect the city from future dispute, our recommendation is for the contract to be amended to specifically exclude the AB 678's revenue from net collections used to compute fees. We also found that the department's 23.5 million estimate appears reasonable based on the transactions from January 2010 to June 2012. However, because the program implementation guidelines have not yet been finalized as of the time of our audit, the city may not receive the funds during this year. Furthermore, there was another $5 million that was anticipated due to productivity gain from outsourcing the ambulance billing. We do not think that may not materialize. So we recommend that the city evaluate the impact of not receiving these funds and, if necessary, identify alternative options to cover the shortfall, should in case the state fail to issue any payment this fiscal year. We also recommend that the department establish a separate revenue source account to properly track the AB 678 revenues. We also noted that the fire department currently pays the fees to the contractor directly from a revenue account, recording the payment as revenue refunds. This approach does not properly disclose the fee as contractors' expenses. So for better transparency, our recommendation is to report the fees paid to the contractor as contract expenses. Department submitted an action plan on how they have or will implement the recommendations in the report. We accepted one recommendation as completed and the remaining 4 as in progress. With respect to the AB 678 revenue, the department indicated in their response that they are optimistic the city can still receive the money this fiscal year. However, it's unclear from their response what progress was made since our audit was issued that would ensure that the funds will be received. But I believe the department may be able to provide more updates on their status. That's it.
What about air transport? It talks about $1,344 for ALS transport services. What about air operation transport?
This bill is only for ground transportation.
So what do we do about the cost on the air operation?
That's the thing.
Councilman, we currently do not receive reimbursement for air transport. I'm June Gibson with the Fire Department.
Oh, we thought you looked familiar. So there's no consideration for the air transport?
My understanding is that the Fire Department currently does not have the proper certification in order to receive reimbursement.
Wait, proper certification for what?
In order to get reimbursed for air transport. There is a process that I believe that they have to go through with LA County, and that has not been completed.
Why not?
I'm not sure. As you may remember, Councilman, I've only been there for 5 months.
Yeah, but how long have you been with the city?
I've only been with the department for 5 months.
But you've been in the city since 1878.
That's true. That is true.
Not 1870.
Yeah, it was 1878. She was one of the founders. But I think what we need to do is first get a report back on that. What's the delay? Because there's a lot of air transport, and whatever the hang-up is, because if you're looking at, we get reimbursed $133, and it costs us $1,344 for a regular transport and ambulance. You can imagine that to transport a helicopter, it's got to be a couple $1,000s. And if we can then get that from the state, that's obviously money we should collect.
And we'll be happy to report back on it. My understanding is that the Fire Department has evaluated that, and I believe that their determination was that based on the minimal number of air transports that are provided, and actually the cost that would be incurred by the patient, and the amount of reimbursement that would be provided by the insurance companies, the cost that we would be receiving on the reimbursement would be relatively minimal. But again, we'll be happy to report back on that particular issue.
The fire department needs to have this mentality that every dollar counts. And when it comes to the budget, which the mayor is going to discuss today at UCLA, he's going to talk about what he's going to do or propose. So the mentality needs to look at every single dollar we need to get so we will be able to provide that service. Because I know many times I've seen air transport, for them to say, well, it's minimal, negligible, that I don't accept that. So let's get that back.
And I want to second that point and make it very clear that in my district, in the northern part of the district, it is difficult to get around, period, and the air transport will save lives, and I want to lose a single life over a payment scheme that people don't have clarity on. So it's very important that we have that option.
Well, and let me just emphasize, Councilman, I certainly did not intend to convey that the department is reluctant to provide air transport. When air transport is required, then we absolutely provide air transport. I was responding to the question as to whether or not we seek reimbursement for that, and my understanding is that we don't seek.
That's why I second his comment.
So,
we want to get those answers.
That precisely is the problem, not seeking reimbursement when we should seek reimbursement, whether it be alarm fees for the police department or licenses for the horses, whatever the case may be. When we don't pursue that, we have these budgets that don't make enough sense to balance, and then we get Mr. Campos to figure out how to make it work, and why don't we just follow the procedure? So it frustrates me that mentality still exists. It should not exist. It should say we collect every penny that we're due. That's what we need to do. So no disrespect to the fire department, but the old tradition doesn't work.
Well, and let me just be fair to the fire department. Let me emphasize again that I've only been there for 5 months. I could absolutely be misunderstanding the information that was provided to me, and so we're very happy to report back on the specifics of the process and what that entails.
Okay. I don't want to beat you up because, you're only there 5 months.
I know.
But
Give me a break.
Before, when you were with the other department, we used to beat you up all the time.
I know.
You liked it.
I know. Give me a break.
And you came back for more torture.
You're a great leader.
June's a great lady.
servant.
She's a great lady. I'm just teasing you a little bit. No, so the issues that I've got some questions, but I know you have another meeting to go. Do you want to take over and I'll ask the questions?
If I could,
After you. Go
I
ahead.
have a 2:30 downstairs. No, go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, I'm fine. If you have any questions, we're here to answer them.
Well, on this, I just want to know when we know how much money we're going to get and how much money, where is it going to come from? Because obviously we need this money to go forward. So it's basically what my colleague has been saying here, ferreting it out and getting those straight answers. And I can just give you the 2 questions that or 3 of them. It says, in the ADPI, in full agreement that they are not entitled to the AB 678 revenue, or are we at risk of them taking legal action against the city?
The city attorney is here. However, the city attorney did provide an advice letter to the fire chief on this particular issue.
Yeah.
And just speaking generalities, because at this point, without the fire chief's approval, I'm reluctant to waive confidentiality, but what was contained in the advice letter, the city attorney did conduct an extremely thorough review, and we're very pleased with the information contained in that letter. And generally, what it indicated was that there is no provision within the current contract that would entitle them to receive reimbursement. In addition, by virtue of the language within the state law that created that codified AB 678, they also would not be entitled to receive reimbursement. So we're certainly comfortable with the information that he has provided to us, and there has been no indication by ADPI that they are planning on seeking legal action to pursue the fees from AB
I appreciate
678.
that. Next question is, since this item was last discussed in the Budget and Finance Committee, has any further progress been made, or have we received any additional indications we will receive this revenue during the current fiscal year? You kind of answered that, but on the record, I need that answer.
As you know, Councilman, I've been providing updates to Budget and Finance Committee, of which you are also a member.
Yeah.
However, as I've indicated and as the Controller indicated, the Fire Department has always been very, very optimistic that we would be receiving reimbursement. And based on a conversation that I had with the Fire Chief, who is serving as the lead on this particular project, who is in direct contact with the state, he indicated to me yesterday the following 2 significant pieces of information. Number 1, the Federal Center for Medicare Services will be providing a response to the fire agencies this month.
Great.
With respect to the cost methodology and the cost components that they will be approving. More significant than that, the state has committed that provided that the fire agencies complete their cost reports by early June, that reimbursements will be transmitted to the agencies by the end of the fiscal year. So based on that timeline and our familiarity with the cost report, we are assured that we will be able to submit the cost reports to the state no later than early June. And so I'm very comfortable that we'll receive reimbursement this fiscal year.
And the last question ties it all together. At what point do we need a backup plan if we fail to receive the AB 678 revenue? Are there any other options other than the reserve fund to fill this revenue gap?
Well, the CAO is here, but let me just speak in generalities. We have been in discussion with the CAO's office on a couple of issues with respect to, number 1, the possibility that we may not get any reimbursement at all. And the other issue that we have raised to them is the issue of the cost components. To be more specific, the $23 million that we had assumed was including the cost of the ambulances, but also the cost of what we call fire suppression. And fire suppression is the engine company that also accompanies the ambulance, and the engine company are the first responders. So that is an issue that we're not sure whether or not the federal government is going to agree is a subject for reimbursement. If that component is excluded, rather than the $23 million, then conservatively, what we're estimating is that the reimbursement is going to be $15 million.
Wow. Thank you.
And if I can add, Fernando Campos, Inspector General with the Office of the CAO's office. Unfortunately, I'm not as optimistic as the fire department in terms of receiving the AB 678 this fiscal year. The question is really a matter of timing. It's not a matter of when, if we're going to get the money, it's just a matter of when. As Ms. Gibson indicated, if the federal government does approve our proposed cost methodologies and templates, we could submit the reimbursement request by the end of this fiscal year. Receipt of the funds should be early part of next fiscal year is my assessment. I understand the fire department is saying, no, we're going to get it before June 30th. We've been reporting through the financial status reports since the beginning of the fiscal year in terms of some milestones that need to be hit in order to account for that money this fiscal year. 2 milestones were indicated in both FSRs. The first one was to submit the reports by December 31st or the cost methodology to the state. That was achieved by the fire department. I believe the fire department has done everything they could and can to make this happen in terms of getting the program approved. So right now we are in wait and see. I do believe that the fire department has done an extraordinary job to get the program tested and develop the cost methodologies. Now it's just a matter of waiting and seeing and waiting for that approval from the federal government. If they do approve it by the end of this month, then we can submit the request for reimbursements hopefully by the end of June and then getting receipt shortly thereafter. But in terms of high likelihood of getting the money this fiscal year, it's my assessment that no, it's not a high likelihood.
Okay, so where's the money going to go if and when we get it? Is it going to go to the fire department? Is it going to go to the general fund?
No,
Is
it's
it going to go to the law?
it's part of general receipts.
The general fund?
Yes,
Why doesn't it go to the fire department?
because that's not the way that the budget works. It's processed as part of general receipts and the general fund for the overall city budget, for the development of the overall city budget.
So the fire department will receive the funding. They will go ahead and process it through the city's financial management system. Then that money is credited to the general fund. So it does go through the fire department if that's...
Well, the problem is the fire department was cut in their budget. And I don't know what the mayor has planned for this next fiscal year, but the question is, if it's reimbursement back to the fire department for services rendered, then it goes into the general fund, and the fire department is going to be reduced again. I mean, it seems that the asset forfeiture that comes in from the police department goes back to the police department. It doesn't go to the general fund.
Well, that's because that's the way that the trust fund was written.
So maybe we should do a trust fund for this.
Revise it, too.
I'm not going to discourage that, sir.
Wow, you're a smart lady.
The only quick question I have is, will you report back to us and let us know if the alarm is true, that we don't get the money, you don't get the money? Let us know before the end of the fiscal year.
We absolutely will be reporting to council on that, and I would have to respectfully disagree with the Inspector General.
Right.
But, be that as it may.
And our office will also include our status update in the next FSR that's in the works now.
So the bottom line is, we anticipate, but we don't know when we're going to get, and when we get, then it's going to go to the general fund.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. So a couple questions. I know my colleague has another committee to attend, and this is going to be a note and file anyway, but what does the IG revenue sheriff have to say about the controller's finding recommendations? Do you think that this is going to work?
In terms of the program reimbursement or in terms of the recommendations, and as a whole for the 5 recommendations, I do agree with the city controller's report in terms of the recommended approach. In terms of the contract clarity, I believe that there is an opportunity for us to increase that clarity in the contract, not only for the AB 678 legislature, but also other areas, approaches that we may consider, such as adjusting the geographical price index and then other programs that we may be seeking funding for through other sources.
I got a concern with ADPI if they think they're going to come in and then tap into what we get in a reimbursement from the bill 678. I mean, to think that that's now going to be money in their pocket. Anyone here from ADPI? I wouldn't want to admit it either. But the fact is, if that contract has to be modified, they're going to go out and collect money based upon the individuals that are treated by the fire department.
Well, Councilman, the difference is that the fees that they receive is based on services rendered. This is not based on services rendered. It's based on a reimbursement.
Well, I would agree with you.
And it's for that reason that they would not be entitled.
Are they aware of that?
They have not raised the issue, and we had a discussion with the city attorney about the suggestion that the controller made about amending the contract. And this is an issue that I raised, and I'm going to draw an analogy. And, based on your experience working for the PPL, you know what happens when one party wants to open a valid MOU and enter into negotiations. And what's happening is that you are opening up negotiations on all items within the MOU.
Right.
We don't want the opportunity for ADPI to come in and to identify other issues that they may also not be happy about within the current contract. So we are very confident that based on the advice letter provided by the city attorney, that they have no grounds to stand on if they want to seek a portion of the revenues that we are receiving based on reimbursement from the federal government.
Okay, I hope that is...
And Mr. Gibson makes a good point in terms of satisfactory services. The contract does require them to perform and render satisfactory services. At this point, if the services are not being performed, therefore, they should not be entitled for the reimbursement.
Is there
So
a
it's just a matter of how we interpret services rendered, and at this point, the fire department is preparing the reimbursement, not the third-party consultant or third-party vendor.
Question about their services?
It's a matter of if they perform the services.
Well, the current services they're providing, are we happy with those?
I think that the department is happy, with the services that they have provided so far.
Okay. So is LAFD satisfied with the services? You say, yeah, they are. To date, has the department done the evaluation? Have we done an evaluation on their services? ADPI services?
I'm not, well, you mean in terms of a formal, in terms of a...
Or any kind of review? How long have they been around with this? It's not been that long.
No, it's been a couple of years.
And it's a 5-year contract?
I think it's 5 years, with additional extensions.
Yes, Councilman Zine, we do have a RFP out right now for an audit of that contract. It was just issued about a week ago. The responses are due.
We're going to audit ADPI?
Yes.
Okay. And when will the guidelines to AB 678 be finalized? The guidelines, we have those done, or that's still in the making?
Well, the program in terms of the cost methodology and reports and templates have been submitted already to the federal government. So in terms of getting the approval to move forward, that's what we're waiting for at this point.
I frankly, well, can I just ask you, I'm not sure when you're referring to guidelines, what guidelines we're talking about. Because what is transmitted to the federal government is the cost methodology, and it's really the federal government that makes the decision as to what cost methodology will be approved, and it's also the federal government that develops the guidelines that we have to follow.
And that's been done?
No, that's what we're waiting for from the federal government.
Okay. So it look unlikely that this would happen before the end of June?
I absolutely disagree. And the reason that I disagree is because everybody here is speaking from a theoretical academic standpoint. We have been in direct contact with the state. The mayor has been in direct contact with the Obama's Secretary of Health and Human Services. We have had contact by the president of the International Association of Firefighters with former House Speaker Pelosi, with Senator Boxer and Senator Feinstein. So we have had contacts through the mayor's office with very high levels of the federal government, and everybody is on board to assure that we will get reimbursed by the end of this fiscal year.
You want to wager that?
I will bet you a Diet Coke.
I'll bet you a Diet Snapple.
Okay. Are you voting against? Are you voting against that we're going to get reimbursement?
But, I look at the federal budget, and God knows where it's going to come from, and if it flows from the feds to the state,
It's not going to be contingent on that.
the state takes out 25% by normal operation. They're not going to take anything out? It's going to come directly from the
It's
feds?
direct. It's a direct reimbursement
pass-through.
from the federal government.
Not through the state?
No, it's passed through the state.
Then they're going to take off 25%?
No, they're not.
How much are they going to take? They're going to take something.
There is an administrative cost to manage the program per se, but it's not on a percentage. There are numbers out there in terms of 150 to 300,000, and I'm speaking prematurely at this point in terms of what the program cost would be. The state would have to come up with that number for the entire state. At that point, then it's going to be divided among all the participants.
It's going to be prorated.
So it's not on a percentage of the reimbursement, it's just the cost of the program and then prorated among the participants.
Because what I've seen in the past is the state takes 25%.
No, and that's not
Well,
what
I've seen that in the past on other contracts.
Right, and then that is not what's
They're normal.
happening with this
I
program.
want to have Simpson & Simpson verify that. How you doing? Okay, and then we've got, what's the level of staffing at LAFD and ambulance billing? The billing process, is this all out to the private sector now, the ambulance billing, or is it any in-house anymore? Is it all gone out?
Yes.
Yes, what?
It's all contracted out.
Okay. And is the collection rate improved?
Yes, it has.
To what percent?
I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think the
used to be
controller
40.
thought it had something.
Is it higher than 40?
Well, it looks like the revenue's been increased by about $10 million.
Revenues are going up. The collection rate, I still have it pretty relatively flat, between 38.9 to 39.5, so a little under 40%.
So the rate's the same, but the cost,
The revenues dollars are going up
how's that?
based on average ambulance costs per bill, so it's based on our price.
That
It's
went
not
up-
a matter of if we're collecting more, it's just a matter that we are collecting more in revenues, but not more from the participants or from the transport.
And the transport, I think, is $1,300 a ride?
I believe
Yeah,
the
it's about
controller's office report indicates about 1,300.
$1,344 a ride. Okay, and then will the department be making any adjustments to staff as a result of the controller's audit?
I don't know why we would.
Okay. Has the city attorney provided they've provided an opinion letter on that? Federal health care. Oh, what about the new federal health care law, impact ambulance billing? Will that have any impact on ambulance billing, the new federal health, the Obama plan?
We're trying to get more information from our contractor, so we'll report back to the committee once we get more definitive information.
And is there any way that that money could go directly from the federal government to the local jurisdictions without going through the state? Or is that just the way it has to be?
That's the way it works.
That's just the way the state health care plan has been drafted.
Because I've spoken to some of the firefighter representatives, and they think that that money is supposed to go directly to them, to the fire department directly. But the plan is the general fund.
Right.
Okay. All right, anything else on that matter? If not, we will note and file. Ms. Gibson, it's a pleasure to see you once again.
Nice seeing you too, sir.
I know you've missed my friendly audit committee.
Yes, I do. Your charming personality.
That's it. Don't forget that one. Mutual admiration here. All right, let's do number 2. And we're going to note and file number 1.
Okay. Item number 2, City Controller Report relative to the fiscal year 2011-12 audited financial statements for the City of Los Angeles.
Good afternoon. Matthias Farfan for the Office of the Controller. Today before you, it's actually items 2 and 3. The city charter requires that the city council hire a firm of accountants to perform independent audits on the city's financial statements. Once those audits are completed, they're submitted to your body through a transmittal cover letter from the controller. Simpson & Simpson, they're here today to discuss those audit reports.
Where's the young son? Come up and join Dad up here. Come on. Do it back there. Soon you'll be taking over the business, you know?
Yes, sir.
Dad will be retiring, playing golf, enjoying life.
As soon as he let me, yes, I will.
As soon as he lets me. All right.
And item number 2 is for the comprehensive annual financial report.
Yep.
If you have any questions regarding the financial statements, I'm here to answer those. And any questions regarding the audit, Mr. Simpson is here.
Well, I know Simpson do great work, and I don't have any questions on this particular responsible ensuring information, city's financial statements fairly, material respect, financial position, government activities. It looks like it's a glowing report. Correct me if I'm wrong.
The report is glowing. I think that the financial statements are prepared fairly as we stated. We issued an unqualified opinion both on the comprehensive audit report for the city and the sewer construction maintenance fund. Both of those have an unqualified opinion, what we call a clean opinion. During our audit, we looked at your internal controls to test those. We are reporting no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in your internal control.
One question I have on number 3, it says that you noted that the sewer construction maintenance fund failed to comply with the terms and conditions of the respective revenue bonds general resolutions? What's that about?
What was
It says failed to comply on the sewer construction maintenance fund.
Is that one of the notes?
It's on the timing, because it's supposed to be...
Identify, please.
Yes, this is Grace Yun from Simpson & Simpson. I'm the field partner on the engagement. And the question, to answer your question, according to the resolution, the financial statement has to be issued by December 31st, 2012 for the fiscal year 2012. So this year we issued the financial statement in February, so it was late. But then we do not have any adjustment to the financial statement. It's just like the timing. It
Okay,
was
the
late.
timing was off. That's why they have failed, because they didn't get it on time.
Right.
Everything else was in order.
Right.
Okay.
Councilman, as you may recall, during the entrance conference to the audit, one of the issues that we raised was the completion of the audit timely as a result of the significant reductions in the city's personnel.
Yeah.
And even with those reduction, I think city personnel that was on hand, they came to the plate, and we were able to get the city comprehensive financial statements out timely, and we were able to bring the resources to bear to make sure that the audit did meet the significant time requirements.
So just a matter of lack of personnel.
Yes.
That's reasonable. What
And-
do you have to say, new Simpson & Simpson president?
I have nothing to add, sir.
Wow. You're teaching them well.
Well, I'm trying.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to the University of Alabama at Huntsville.
Okay. How you like the weather out here?
I love it.
California. All right, that's good. That's all we have on the agenda today, so we'll note and file that. I want to thank Simpson for another wonderful report on 2 and 3. Note and file both of those. Good work and good cooperation and good auditing keeps the ship afloat.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else, Mr. Adrian Garcia? No? Okay, we're going to be then, it's already almost 2:45. We can go see the mayor do the State of the Union today.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all very much. That concludes this meeting.